Hey, Lo, you already know what time it is. Time to get this show on the road. Let's go.
Say less. I'm on my way.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for season 3 of the hit. And I really hope you guys liked that new video intro that me and Calvin kind of, schemed together. I mean, he wasn't there, but he was there. You heard him on the phone call. I mean, he was there. And I want to also shout out my best friend, my blood brother since 3 years old, Justin, aka Flight Fooly, for creating the theme song for the podcast. I was over there helping him put it together. I saw everything that he was doing, and I told him what we wanted, and he absolutely crushed it. So shout out to him. But without further ado, you know who I am. I'm Logan Graffia. He's Calvin Rons. Let's get right into it, Calvin. Let's get right into the NFL. The Saints, of course. Saints just wrapped up a game against the Panthers. Was not good. They lost. Saints lost 10-7. Saints scored on their opening drive. Andy Dalton, 4 for 4, over 50 yards, touchdown to, I want to say, Chris Olave. After that, they didn't score another point. Will Lutz missed 2 field goals, if I'm not mistaken. It was 2. One where it just sailed off to the left, which it looked odd enough to even me. It looked like maybe the AC was blowing a little bit too hard in the Superdome, Calvin. I don't know if that was the case. I doubt it. But then the other one, he completely hooked it. It looked like someone was lagging on Madden when they was trying to kick a field goal, and it just completely went left field. So, man, Saints finished with 10 losses for the first time since 2005, Calvin, when they finished 3-13, and that was during the Katrina season. Now, we are playing an extra game now. They didn't play 17 games back in '05, but still double digit losses still isn't good. Now, my question to you is, this season as a whole, I mean, kind of put into words, what do you what was your thoughts on the season as a whole? I mean, you know mine, but I just want to hear yours.
This was a very unenjoyable season to watch. Um, if anyone knows me, I'm a closeted Lions fan, right? I've always supported the Lions. Uh, I ain't saying I'm a fan now. Like, hey, I just support them now. Like I like to watch them. It was interesting to see, like, man, why do y'all lose so many games? Like, it was interesting to see like that. Uh, but they were always at least fun to watch. And then we were just bad. We were bad and not enjoyable to watch. Like, I would be happy if we lost games like the Lions did. Um, I would be happy if we at least made it fun to watch. I mean, scoring 7 points and losing, and the other team scoring 10, that is never fun to watch. Um, but you had a lot of games this year where it was like, okay, we're dominating the game in the trenches, and yet we still don't score more than the other team. We whooped Tom Brady, and we still found a way to lose. We decimated Sam Darnold here and still found a way to lose. I don't understand how you lose a game when your quarterback on the other team is 5 for 13, 43 yards, and 2 interceptions. I mean, and you win the turnover margin, and you still lose. Um, I said one of the biggest gripes I had was the red zone offense because I don't think I've seen a single fade route attempt to Chris Olave this entire season, but I've seen one to Taysom Hill, and that just didn't make any sense to me. Um, but all in all, the season we could have won at least three more games. I think they're very obtainable. That Vikings game was very obtainable. We should have had that. The two Tampa Bay games we should have won. So that's three right there, and we're in the playoffs if you look at that. Um, and I think that just came down to coaching. Those games were the biggest telling of coaching that I have seen, and it's really frustrating when we blow games like that. And when we come back from behind down 16 against the Falcons, or we beat the best team in the league, the Eagles, is really frustrating. Or, going to Cleveland and playing in one of the coldest games ever and finding a way to win and fight against a very physical team. Um, it just sucks. And it just was not a fun product to watch. And this was the first time in a long time I felt like, you know what? I don't really want to watch this, you know?
I mean, and the crazy thing is, I'm sure you were sitting next to your dad, and he was saying the same thing. He was just like, "Hey, this feels like the old days where back in the day, the Saints will be on, they'll start losing, and it's like, hey, I'm gonna go around the block or around the corner to my friend's house and go, let's just go outside. I don't want to watch these losers." But there's little bits and pieces that you can be excited or happy about. So I mean, I want to give a shout out to James Hurst. I mean, he filled in for Trevor Penning the whole season basically, and he did. I want to say I give him about a B+ grade job. And I also want to shout out Chris Olave for basically being our wide receiver one this year. Because with the man that you have in your background, it looks like he's not even going to be here anymore, Michael Thomas. And also another one, Rashid Shaheed. That guy is just lightning quick, Calvin. For a guy who was primarily a kick returner or a punt returner at Weber State, to come in and basically be our slot guy. He was basically our slot guy. He was what we always wanted Tommy Lee Lewis to be or Deontay Hardy to be and more. I think those were two rookie guys right there, Olave and Shaheed. I can honestly be excited about. Now, with that being said, we have to find a new offensive coordinator, Calvin, because everything that I'm hearing is Pete Carmichael Jr. will not be returning for the 2023 season and beyond, because I am hearing that they will most probably let him go. I am like 95% confident that he will not be here. So with that being said, I want to hear, because I kind of have my little list put together, who are kind of like one or two guys out there that you would like to see the Saints kind of go after to be the next offensive coordinator?
Now, obviously, there's names like Eric Bieniemy and Shane Steichen and Sean McDermott, I think, or who's his Ken Dorsey. That's who it is, Ken Dorsey. But I'm a little realistic, and I'll find it really hard to believe that Shane Steichen or Eric Bieniemy will leave teams that have a franchise quarterback for their foreseeable future, as well as great offensive pieces for the foreseeable future, to come here to a team that doesn't have a quarterback and whose coaching situation isn't solid. So the only way that I can think of guys like that coming is you tell them, hey, in half a season or maybe even a year, you're going to be the guy once we fire this guy. But even then, I don't know. So realistically, I have the two Johnsons. I have Brian Johnson and Ben Johnson. Brian Johnson is the quarterback's coach for the Eagles. I think he did an excellent job with Jalen Hurts this year, because I did not expect Jalen Hurts to be as good as he was. And if you can develop Jalen Hurts like that, then I think you're going to be pretty successful in this league. Kind of like Joe Lombardi did when he was right here with Drew Brees. I mean, you don't really need to develop Drew Brees, but whatever. And Ben Johnson, man, Ben Johnson got balls on him. Pause. Because, man, I cannot tell you how many times I have threw a remote at the TV because Dennis Allen's nuts shriveled up, talking about, oh man, I think I'll just take the points, or oh, I'll just punt it. and we're on their side of the field. It's irritating. I think we only went for like 4th and short like 3 times this season. It was disgusting, and we had the lowest percentage of doing it in situations where we should have done it analytically wise out of every team in the league. And Ben Johnson, man, it's like just he calls such the most ballsy stuff in ballsy opportunities, and it works for him. And I'm like, that's who I want as OC. I want someone who's going to take the chance. I want someone who ain't afraid to run that ball on 3rd and 9 and get it. I want someone who ain't afraid to do what he did last night against the Packers. They had nothing to play for, and yet he gets Jared Goff, throw a pass to Amon-Ra, Amon-Ra tosses it back to a sweeping receiver. That's beautiful. And then they get it. He done great things with that offense, but those are my 2 guys, man.
Well, I honestly can say I think Ben Johnson is going to get head coaching interviews, and if he doesn't, I'll be pleasantly surprised. But for mine, I mean, my number 1 guy for a while, probably before they named Pete Carmichael the offensive coordinator for the 2022 season, is Brian Johnson. I've been telling you about this guy probably since his days when he was the offensive coordinator at Florida when they had Kyle Trask, and he made Kyle Trask and that offense look like a top 5 offense in the nation, and they were. It helped Kyle Trask earn a 2nd-round draft pick spot. And I don't even think Kyle Trask is all that great. Now, did I want him at the time? Yeah, but looking back, it was all Brian Johnson, in my opinion. I mean, and for those who don't know who Brian Johnson is, I'm sure you have a lot of old NCAA football games laying around. If you go look at the cover for NCAA 10, he is on the cover. He is a former Sugar Bowl MVP, if I'm not mistaken. And he's also the current QB's coach for the Eagles. And I want to highlight his position right now as the QB's coach, because the Saints need help at QB badly, and why not go get somebody who's also been a play caller, but also specializes in coaching quarterbacks? Just makes sense. And he's also a former quarterback, so it also makes sense. Then another one, I mean, we interviewed him last season, and I was kind of hoping we would actually hire him, and that's Scotty Montgomery, the running backs coach from the Colts. And when he was coming, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to kind of run a similar Frank Reich type of system, maybe a little bit of RPO, read option, spread. I'm all for that now because, I mean, I love old school football, but I want to see a good offense. And the offense that we run now is just the offense of old. Now, the only person I think that can come in and run an offense like that with the I formation fullbacks, everything, is either Sean Payton or John Gruden, and neither one of them are coming here. So mine would be Brian Johnson and Scotty Montgomery. That's my 2 guys. And I'm glad I said Brian Johnson, a former quarterback, because the talk at the water cooler right now, Calvin, is who's going to be the quarterback for the Saints, or quarterbacks for the Saints in 2023. Now, I was talking to you we was actually talking last night. I was like, Calvin, I need you to give me 3 guys who you would love to see play for the Saints, whether it be free agent, draft, trade. Just give me your 3 guys.
So my unrealistic, everything goes perfect and God shines his beautiful light down on the Saints. 3 quarterbacks would be Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, or Bryce Young. But we live in a world where the Saints don't have money and the Saints don't have a 1st-round pick, but we do have this guy who I don't think is going to get you a 1st-round pick. I'm on the train of keep him, but that's for another day. So realistically, and it might not even be realistic still, I say really it all depends on what you do with the cap, like what you figure out with all these contracts, because nothing's going to happen if you don't figure that out. Because truth of the matter is, Jameis Winston is on a cheap contract for a quarterback. And you know how Mickey Loomis is. Oh, cheap? Well, we're going to roll with it. And, obviously that's not ideal. But I would say you make a trade potentially for one of these younger quarterbacks that are disgruntled or not going to be part of the team. I don't really think Trey Lance might be part of the plan moving forward for the 49ers. So maybe you kick the tires on him. Um, Jordan Love, I mean, he's probably going to be the starter next year if I had to say. But, if they do decide to draft a quarterback, maybe you look at him. You got guys like Zach Wilson. I know how everybody feels about Zach Wilson, but maybe if he comes here and let's say we have a Brian Johnson at coach, I see that it might work out. I mean, people were saying the same thing about Carson Wentz. Say, hey, bring him to the Saints for Sean Payton, he'll work out. And then, um, man, I had this name in my head, but I can't remember. So basically, guys like Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, you go try to get those guys. I think they're affordable for sure. And if you want a vet, you can probably make a trade for like a Jacoby Brissett and maybe even Drew Lock. Drew Lock's there because Geno's gonna be the guy. So I think that might be beneficial. You can catch one of those guys on a nice little cheap deal. Maybe give up a fourth rounder, a third rounder for him, whatever. Because quarterback class this year, outside C.J. Stroud and all that, is real questionable. Hendon Hooker's good and all, but we just don't know. But that's what I got.
Well, I mean, for mine, I like to kind of be realistic. I think now on my realistic list, I want to put CJ Stroud because Arizona just fired Cliff Kingsbury and their GM Steve Keim, and everything that we've been hearing is Sean Payton wants to be as close to the coast as possible. And I don't think the Chargers are firing their coach unless they just absolutely get blanked in the playoffs, which is possible. But Arizona has an opening. They have the third pick, which could give us CJ Stroud. But realistically, I'm not saying I would like this, but I think this is just realistic. You have Derek Carr, who's out there. He won't get you a championship, but he can probably get you to the playoffs, and he is better than any quarterback that we have on the roster right now. Then there's Gardner Minshew, who's going to be a free agent you can get for cheap. I know how everyone feels about him, but I mean, you can bring in someone like a Brian Johnson, and I mean, he might go after like Gardner Minshew to implement his system from Philly. That makes sense. Then number 3, I mean, my favorite is Hendon Hooker. I mean, everyone's just talking about his age, the injury, and all this other stuff, and it's like, did y'all not see this guy play when he was healthy? When he was healthy, he was probably going to win the Heisman. If he doesn't get hurt, he's probably winning the Heisman, Calvin. I don't know if you agree with that, but what I saw him play with my own eyes when he played against LSU. And what I saw, I'm like, wow, this man can win the Heisman. I want to see that man in a Saints uniform. Then he gets hurt, and it's like, okay, I think the Saints have a chance of getting him now because he was working his way up to be a first-round pick. If he doesn't get hurt, Calvin, he's probably a top 15, top 20 pick. Now he's probably either going to be in the round 2 or round 3. Saints at the moment pick 41st. Why not go after him? He comes in for training camp. You have someone like a Brian Johnson, it could be beautiful. So those are my 3 guys: Carr, Minshew, Hooker. But unrealistically, I'd love to see us trade Sean to Arizona for that third pick is CJ Stroud. But that's just going to be something I leave up to God himself because you know how that goes. But moving on to the next topic, Calvin. We got the Pelicans. They are on a tiny little losing streak, and we are playing the Washington Wizards tonight, which is January 9th, 2023, as we record this. And according to Andrew Lopez of ESPN, who is our Pelicans guy here, Brandon Ingram still is not going to be playing tonight. And that's kind of starting to be a cause for concern because Brandon told Cassie Hubbard from ESPN last game against the Nets that he plans on playing on the road trip. Well, this is the second game on the road trip. I don't see him. He's out there getting shots up and everything, but where is he at? I don't know when he's coming back. I mean, Calvin, do you see him coming back on this road trip at all? Because I'm starting to get concerned. Like, is this another Michael Thomas situation with the ankle? Because, I mean, this is starting to seem more than like a toe injury.
Well, I can tell you, it is a full-fledged toe injury. Toe injuries suck, especially for, like receivers like my guy here, and Brandon Ingram, because you have to, every plant that you make is facilitated by that big toe. Every jump, every explosive action, it's all coming through the big toe. And, I brought this question up before, are players getting softer? Because I feel like he might be ready, but to him, he's not confident enough to put down that toe. And then I had to bring myself back. I had a calf injury this season. I had a strained calf, and I couldn't walk. Like I physically could not walk on it for probably a week and a half. I had to relearn how to walk because I had to have enough confidence to put the power on it. And then it took me. I came back, and then I wasn't still full strength until probably like 2 weeks after I came back on it because I just wasn't confident enough to keep pushing off of it like 100%. So I know what he's feeling, but it is a little bit concerning when it went from a big toe contusion to now it seems like this is just full on severe case of turf toe, or court toe, I guess what you want to call it. I don't really see him coming back for this road stretch. Um, I don't see why he would. I think at this point you might not see him or Zion until after the All Star break or maybe slightly before, because I know it's a scary realization, but we know how this team is with injury. We know how New Orleans is with injury. They say, okay, we'll reevaluate you in 2 weeks. 2 weeks comes by. Well, we'll give you another 2 weeks. We'll give you another 2 weeks. We'll give you another 2 weeks. And it's just real vague, and it's frustrating as a fan. I'm sure he's frustrated too, but whenever he's ready to play is when he's ready to play. So
Yeah, it has been. It's just crazy that both of our stars, 2 out of 3 of our stars, are now down. Zion with a hamstring strain. Wow, that's a tongue twister for me. But Zion should be back by the end of the month. I believe that Zion's going to do his damnedest to come back at least by the end of the month before the All Star break. Because Zion himself says he doesn't like to miss games. He says he sat up for so long, I don't want to miss games as much as I can. Brandon, he needs to come back because I don't think I love CJ to death, but I don't know if CJ can hold down the fort by himself because he didn't even play against the Mavs because they was holding him up for rest. And I mean, if we want to continue to be at the top of the West, we're 3 right now, and I mean, I don't want to see us drop all the way to 7 or something because that could be trouble. It could be hard to come out of that go from 3 to 7 and then try to climb your way back to 3. So that leads me to a question, and I want to get this quickly from you because we got to move on. Do we need to make a trade for somebody? And if so, who is that person that we need to trade for, Calvin? Realistically.
I've been saying we need to make a trade since the beginning of the season because I'm looking at guys like Devontae Graham and Jackson Hayes on this roster, and I'm like, they don't need to be getting minutes on this roster. They don't. Jackson Hayes shows you flash here and there, but he's way too inconsistent to comfortably have him in there. But go get you. I mean, I could have a lot of names, but I'm just going to summarize it to this. Go get you either a shooter like Bojan. I mean, I know Bojan's a little old, but go get you a shooter like him, or go get you a backup center that can rebound and is tall and can at least provide some sort of rim protection because Jonas just seems like he forgot what that is. And no one else other than Larry Nance, who's dealing with injuries himself, is doing it. So find a way, get you a rebounder or get you a shooter.
Well, I love to see us go get Mitch Robinson. I've wanted him on this team for a long time now, but that seems unrealistic. I doubt the Knicks trade him. I'd like to see us go get Bogdanovich. I wouldn't mind that. I mean, seems like the Pistons are willing to get rid of him. I mean, we have the capital to do it. We have slither of first round picks, but season in a nutshell is going good. We're the 3rd seed at the moment, but we gotta get healthy. I think once Bi and Zion get back, we're gonna make a run, and I think teams are gonna get scared because Bi, Zion, and CJ, and even Jonas on the court together. That's a scary sight. Moving on to one of our final topics is the LSU Fighting Football Tigers, Calvin. They just absolutely destroyed Purdue in their recent bowl game, but that already happened. We already know what happened in that game. We saw Jaden Daniels go and catch a touchdown in the Philly special move that Brian Kelly pulled out of his hat. And we also saw Garrett Nussmeier go out there, and we saw some good things from him. But the talk right now for LSU is the transfers and the freshmen that are coming in. Now, Calvin, I have my favorite transfer that's coming in. I might be a little biased about who it is, but want to get your favorite transfer thus far for the LSU Tigers.
Well, I already know your favorite transfer, and that's Zy Alexander. I already know it. So I'm gonna have him as mine also because I love seeing guys come from smaller schools and going to bigger schools and being successful. That's always good to see because a lot of times guys get overlooked in recruiting. I mean, I was, and I turned out fine, and there's a lot of guys like that, and I just like seeing everybody win and him coming out and going to a little small school and being successful there, and then teams recognize that and get them. And uh, as far as freshmen go, Zalen's Hurd from Neville. I really like him. I mean, I'm up there, in Ruston, so I hear a lot about Neville every now and then, and I think he's number 2 in the state, something like that. And I mean, the guy's a beast. He's gonna be a beast for you guys.
And I mean, you kind of already took my answer for the favorite transfer because I mean, I got to see Zy Alexander play with my own eyes because I was at Southeastern, I think his first year when I was finishing up, and when I got to see him, I'm thinking, man, who is this guy? At first, I thought he was like a little guy. I'm thinking, man, this is a guy just a little bit taller than me, and I mean, I think he's a little bit over 6 foot. But I mean, man, the guy was a ball hawk, and he was locking down people that was even bigger than him, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, man, this guy's a freshman. Oh wow, this is great. This was like a couple years ago, of course. And then as time goes on, I'm like, okay, this man's catching picks and bringing them to the house. Then as soon as he entered the transfer portal, I'm like, okay, LSU has to go get this guy. They gotta go get him because we're already losing Makai Gardner, Jarek Bernard Converse, Colby Richardson. I mean, all those guys that started at LSU this past year at corner was transfers. One of them was from McNeese, same division as Southeastern. So Zy Alexander, I want to say, is probably going to be one of my favorites. On top of Denver Harris from A&M. Then as for the freshmen coming in, you got the Union running back Trey Holly. I really like this guy coming in. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna get playtime this year over someone like Josh Williams or Amari Goodwin or John Emery, but I think Trey Holly's gonna be an absolute beast for LSU, which leads me to my next question. Do you think LSU can be a title contender in 2023?
Really, everybody in the top 8 are title contenders. If you really want to think about it like that. So, can they get to 8? Yes, of course. I said earlier this year that the peak for this team would probably be like 5, and they got to 6. So, it's the same situation. It's LSU. It's not gonna be too difficult for LSU to get into the top 10. It's LSU. They're gonna be like it's like Alabama. Just win a few games and you're in. The schedule doesn't look too taxing right now, but that's yet to be seen. Yeah, man, y'all can compete. Y'all be fine.
Well, I certainly think we could be title contenders. I mean, I have my bold prediction right now is I think we're gonna be 11-1. Now, where does that loss come from? I have no idea. Hopefully, it's not Bama because I really do not like that fan base at all or that team. But I'd be remiss if we didn't move on to this last topic of the podcast, Calvin. The Tulane Green Wave having a historic season. Historic comeback against the USC Trojans in the Cotton Bowl, Calvin. They were down, I want to say 45-30. They came back and they beat USC. They beat the Heisman Trophy winner. A historic season. This is their best season since that 98 season where they went undefeated with Tommy Bowden as head coach, Sean King at quarterback. I mean, Calvin, what do you make of the Tulane Green Wave? Are you surprised?
Man, I'm really happy that we're talking about the best team in college football for Louisiana in Tulane. Shout out to them being ranked higher than LSU since what 98. Jesus Christ, probably something like that. Man, I've been a guy who liked Tulane a lot. When I was coming out of high school, Tulane was looking at me and my cousin. He didn't go there, and then I took a little visit there or whatever. And man, I really did like it there, but I was like, man, I don't really feel like putting in the effort academically. Like I knew, like I could, but I was like, yo, I know what this is. I mean, tech is just as rigorous, but I was like, I think it'd just be better for me to just go, 4 hours away, just meet a new group of people instead of being home, and I just thought that would be best. But um, I've always looked at Tulane, man. I've always like, man, what if I just enter this portal and go to Tulane? What if I just did that? It always in the back of my head. My strength coach, my old strength coach, Kurt Hester, went to Tulane last year. Man, we love Coach Hester. Man, just such a good guy. I knew the second that they got him, I was like, they're going to be making waves. I mean, no pun intended. But they got him, and then they got my guy Tyler Grubbs. He just transferred in there. He's one of the best linebackers in the country. I can tell you that right now, off rip. He's good for about 120 tackles every year. Um, and then Cameron Wire, I went to high school with him. That's my guy. Obviously, he started a couple games for y'all at LSU at offensive line. He's now at Tulane. Man, Tulane is a beautiful thing to watch, man. I love it. Going like what two and whatever last year. Now you're 11-2, winning a bowl
Exactly.
game. I mean, against USC. I mean, I ain't gonna sit here and say I'm surprised, but man, it's amazing to see that
Really is.
teams like Tulane are coming out. I mean, we saw ULL last year.
Mm-hmm.
They had a beautiful year, and Tulane, and now it's like, all right, you know what? LSU ain't the only one that got a hat in this ring anymore. Like I like seeing that. So yeah, man, I'm happy for those guys, and I wish the guys who I just said nothing but the best. Um, man, I don't know. He probably should have went to Tulane. We happy with the decision.
Okay.
So yeah, man, shout out to Tulane.
Yeah, definitely shout out to Tulane. Gotta give Tulane some love. I mean, hell, Willie Fritz is gonna be the Grand Marshal for Endymion. That's pretty darn cool if you ask me. I mean, seeing Coach Fritz out there, then he was just at the Pelicans game the other night getting roars of cheers from the crowd. I mean, New Orleans has Tulane fever, and I'm happy about that because, I mean, for the longest time, Tulane wasn't good. And I got to say, it took Coach Fritz a while to get him to this point, but I'm happy they finally got there. Seeing Tulane ranked with my own eyes in my lifetime, truly a beautiful thing to see. And I really hope that they got most of the band coming back next year, and I think they can go on another run. And they can at least finish top 15 again, if you ask me. But, well, Calvin, that seems to be the end of the podcast. We're at the wrap up portion. And was there anything that we did not mention? Comments, concerns, statements that we didn't get to that you would like to just add before we head on out?
Um, this guy right here, very weird situation, but I would like to keep him. I see no reason in not keeping him. I get it; he's expensive and all that, but as far as I'm concerned, it's Michael Thomas, and teams are going to respect that. He's going to take guys off of Chris Olave because Chris Olave took way too many hits for my liking, and as we see, ball security is slightly an issue with him. He's fumbled multiple times this year, and he drops the ball when he gets hit hard. And that usually happens because there's a safety that's cracked down on him because he's really the only one you got to guard. Um, and obviously, we saw Michael Thomas first game last year, 2 touchdowns on AJ Terrell, who didn't give up a single touchdown the year before that. So this guy right here, I'm on the keep him train because I know what he is, I know what he can be, and I don't think age or his injuries is stopping that because, I mean, look at DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, the guy is almost as old, and he's still amazing. So hopefully we figure that out with him. Hopefully he's in black and gold. I would love to see it, but it is what it is if he ain't.
Well, I mean, my final comments are going to be I think my bold take is Jeff Ireland, Sean Payton to Arizona. We get that number 3 pick. We get CJ Stroud. Then after that, I mean, the second round, you could draft Robinson or Charbonnet. Round 2, get that running back, and then let's just build through the draft and free agency after that. Brian Johnson, please come be our offensive coordinator. Jaden Daniels is going to be in the Heisman Trophy convos in 2023. Bold take there. The Pelicans are going to figure it out, and I still think we win at least 50 games and make it to the Western Conference Finals. And with that being said, Calvin, we have to get on out of here. So This has been a very, very great edition of The Hit. We will see each and every one of you next time. For Calvin Rons, I'm Logan Graffia. Ta-ta!